The Cincinnati Reds have a Nick Lodolo problem on their hands.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to Locked On Reds. We are your daily source for all things Cincinnati Reds. I'm Stephen Offenbaker, and I have been talking about the Cincinnati Reds in podcast form for the better part of 6 years. I love the Cincinnati Reds. I love baseball. I have taken my love of the game. I have taken my love for this Cincinnati Reds team, and I have turned it into information for you. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's podcast, we're going to be talking about Nick Lodolo. Nick Lodolo had another less than stellar outing, and I think the Reds have a Nick Lodolo problem. We're going to talk about what that problem is and what the Reds should do about it coming up here in just a minute. I think the dream of the playoffs for the Reds may be done, but the remainder of this season will be important for the Reds as they plan for 2025. And there are a few new faces around the old dugout in Cincinnati these days. We're going to talk about who is new in town. Before we get into any of that, shout out to today's sponsor of the show, Supply House. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to get the parts you need fast. Shop for your next plumbing, HVAC, or electrical job and get fast shipping from coast to coast at SupplyHouse.com. All right, I'm going to start with talking about Nick Lodolo, another less than stellar outing for the Reds starting pitcher. Basically, he was cruising along and having himself an incredible season right up until the point where he got that blister. Told you at the time that he got that blister, I reached out to our friend Chris Welsh and asked him, what did you guys do about blisters back in the day when you were pitching? And he said there really wasn't a whole lot that could be done about it. Players tried putting some of the spray on skin or the Dermabond, the glue over top of the blister, hoping that it would help prevent it from recurring. But that stuff would just peel right off. And they never really had any success with it. Basically, Chris said the only solution that you could really implement to fight off getting additional blisters was to change the grip of your pitches. Since the time that Nick Lodolo has had those blisters, he has basically been getting pummeled. Let's go back his last 5 starts. In his last 5 starts, going all the way back to July 31st against the Chicago Cubs, Nick Lodolo allowed 8 runs, all of them earned against the Cubs. He then faced Miami, and he allowed 2 earned runs, a little bit better, but it was the Marlins. August 11th against Milwaukee, he allowed 3 runs, all of them earned. Not a terrible outing in 5 1/3 innings. Then we get to August 17th against the Kansas City Royals. You all probably remember that well. 2 1/3 innings, 8 runs, all of them earned. He absolutely got pummeled. And then against the Pittsburgh Pirates yesterday, the Pirates scored 5 runs, all of them earned. Lodolo walked 3 while striking out 9. Things don't look great for Nick Lodolo. And I have a hypothesis. I have a thought as to why that is. Not 100% certain this is why it is, but I really do think this is probably part of the problem. I think that Nick Lodolo's changed the grip on his pitches, just like Chris Welsh said was the solution for pitchers that were getting blisters. If you go back to Nick Lodolo's starts before the blister, he was mowing guys down. He was the Nick Lodolo that we hoped he would be. He comes back from that blister injury and he can't get guys out. He's allowing a ton of runs. And I think that that's because he is changing the grip on his pitches. The problem with that is he doesn't have spring training to perfect it. He doesn't have a significant amount of time to work on these pitches. Changing the grip changes the action on the ball. It changes the spin. It changes what the pitch is going to do. It limits his ability to command them. It limits his ability to control them. And we get these results. We get 8 runs allowed twice now. In the last 5 starts, he has allowed 8 runs, all of them earned. The Reds cannot compete if this is going to be the production they get from their starting pitchers. This Reds rotation is reeling. We still don't know exactly what's going to happen with Hunter Greene. We don't know if he is going to be back soon. We don't know if he's going to be back at all. Nick Lodolo would be your next man up. He would be the next guy that you would look to fill that role of starting pitcher number 1. Of ace, dare we say. And there are times that Nick Lodolo has actually looked like an ace. There are times where you could look at Nick Lodolo and begin to believe that you could count on him to be the Reds' number 1B starting pitcher. Those days are in the rearview mirror right now. I am very concerned about what is going on with Nick Lodolo. I don't think it's something that Derek Johnson can fix right now. I don't think it's something really that Nick Lodolo can fix right now. Nick Lodolo has two choices here. He can continue to throw the way that he is throwing and hope that he can figure it out, hope that whatever changes and tweaks that he has made, he can get a hold of it and he can get some command and he can get some control and he can begin to get hitters out again. His other option is to go back and do what has worked for him. Go back and do what allowed him to get guys out. Problem with that is it could lead to another blister. I'm not sure what the right answer is. I don't know in the grand scheme of things with starting pitchers and the repetitive nature of throwing these pitches. I don't know that if enough time has passed, can he go back to the way that it was and throw the ball the way that he used to and not have to worry about the returning of this blister. I'm not sure that it works that way. Everything that I've read seems to lead me to believe that once you've had a blister in a spot there, and if you continue the same repetitive action, you're going to be much more prone to another blister. That would seem to lead us to the place where the only way that Nick Lodolo is going to be able to figure it out is to get to the offseason and work on these pitches and work with Derek Johnson and work with the Reds coaching staff and learn new grips and learn new ways to do what he does. I believe that Nick Lodolo can do that. I believe that he can be successful. I believe that he can find his way. It's just very difficult to do in the middle of a big league season, competing against Major League Baseball athletes, in many cases, guys that are trying to make the playoffs, guys that are trying to help their team win always. You can't figure it out on the fly. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they should send Nick Lodolo down. I'm not saying that he should go to Louisville to try to figure this out because, quite frankly, there's not another next man up right now. The Reds rotation is reeling, as I said. We don't know if or when we're going to get Hunter Greene back. We don't know if Graham Ashcraft is going to spin it back up in time to come help this team this season. I doubt it. We don't know if Nick Lodolo is going to be able to figure it out and not allow 5 runs every single time out. His ERA, it's through the roof right now. He's currently sitting at 4.76. He had a higher ERA last year, but that was just in 7 starts. This season, he's already thrown the most innings that he's ever thrown at the big league level. His rookie season, he threw 103 1/3 innings. This season, including last night's start, he's thrown 115 1/3 innings. I don't know that Nick Lodolo might not be running out of innings to throw this season. Factor in the fact that he's struggling, and you have to find yourself in a position where you're just hoping he's able to keep it together, to hold it together, to work hard just long enough to get the Reds through this season. We're going to talk about coming up in the next segment how I believe that playoff discussion, talk of seizing that final wild card is pretty much in our rearview mirror. I think that that's where I'm at. I think Jeff's getting there. He's always a little bit more optimistic than me. But I think that where I am right now is that it's time to evaluate who we have right now as a member of the Cincinnati Reds and how they can help this Cincinnati Reds team, not in 2024 now, but in 2025. I think that's the lens we're going to have to start looking at players through. That being said, there's a lot of players to still be excited about. There are a lot of people on this team doing a lot of things that we're going to want to watch in order to figure out, are they going to be part of this team in 2025? Are they going to be maybe members of the bench, maybe members of the bullpen? Are they going to be in this starting rotation? There's a lot of questions to be answered. And the Cincinnati Reds and their struggles and their inability to be consistent has led us to a point now in a season where the wild card spots are pretty much wide open. The Reds could stumble their way into a run that put them back into relevance, back into contention, but I'm not going to hold my breath for it. I'm not going to tell you all that we should believe that it's going to happen because I don't think that it is. But I do think that there's a lot of things to watch for, a lot of things to be excited about, a lot of players on this team that can do some big things. Elly De la Cruz, the conversation that Jeff and I had yesterday, talking about him. somebody to watch for a 30-70 season potentially. We're going to talk about all those things coming up here in just a minute. But before we get out of this, I don't want to leave you with the impression that I'm giving up on Nick Lodolo. I don't want to leave you with the impression that I am so concerned that I don't think Nick Lodolo can figure it out. I believe that he has the smarts, he has the athleticism, he has the ability to get this thing back on track. Could he do it in season this year? Could he come out in a couple more starts and begin to get a feel for the strike zone and his pitches and his command and his control? Yeah, he could. But I suspect that that's not what's going to happen. He may have a start or two the rest of the way where it's the old Nick Lodolo and he gets guys out depending on the team that he's facing. But I think what's more likely is he's going to continue to struggle a little bit till we get to the end. The Reds are in such bad shape as far as the starting rotation goes. They're really probably holding their breath at this point that he can make it through the rest of the season and they don't have to put him on the injured list and bring up somebody else. I don't want that for Nick Lodolo. I would like for him to continue to work on these pitches, gather some data so that he can go into this offseason and figure out what he has to do to evolve. We looked at this with Hunter Greene. We demanded it from Hunter Greene. We continued to harp it until Hunter did it, which is he has to transition from thrower to pitcher. He has to be able to mix his pitches. He has to be able to do more than just throw the ball. The struggles that Nick Lodolo has had tells us that he's trying to make adjustments on the fly, not being successful at it, and is going to continue to have to work and struggle. And it's going to be rough goings for him the rest of the way, I believe. But I do believe he's going to figure it out. I do believe when we come back in 2025, Nick Lodolo can be that ace 1B that the Cincinnati Reds are going to need in order to progress to a playoff spot. All right. What is next for the Reds? What is next for them if they're not in playoff contention? Well, the next 6 weeks, all of September, the rest of August, heading into October are going to still matter because these young players, these role players on this team are going to have to prove that they deserve to stay, that they deserve to be extended, that they deserve to be kept. We're going to talk about who needs to do what coming up next. Summertime means outdoor activities and fun in the sun. But don't forget to stay hydrated. Liquid IV will keep you in the game all day. Liquid IV came in handy for me just the other day. I spent the day out at the beach here on the Big Island. And as the day went on, I felt myself kind of feeling run down. So I popped some Liquid IV. You know, it equals 2 full bottles of water. And it got me right back into the ocean and into the fun. I always make sure that I have it with me wherever I go. They have amazing flavors also. You can beat the summer heat with a special new popsicle firecracker flavor or keep it classic with the lemon lime. I don't head to the beach or out and about on the island without Liquid IV in my bag. It keeps the cramps away. And of course, with Liquid IV, hydration is key to a healthy, happy summer. You can get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code MLB at checkout. That's right, 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you can shop for better hydration today. Again, just use the code MLB at liquidiv.com for better hydration today. Get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support from industry-leading service from the friendliest folks around in the business, and you can talk to a real person each and every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining supplyhouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. Thank you for making Locked On Reds your first listen today. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On MLB podcast. Host Paul Sullivan, aka Sully, is here daily to provide national expertise with his trademark humor to help you get ready for the MLB playoffs here in the dog days of summer. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day on Locked On MLB. Available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, guys, I don't want you to think that the rest of this season is not important. I don't want you to think that even if we're all in agreement that the Reds probably aren't making the postseason, I don't want you to think that what still has to come this year is not important. There are several players that we're going to want to see where they end up. Let's start with the top of the lineup from last night's game. Now, and look, if you watched yesterday's game, you probably came away from it just as disappointed as I did. This Pittsburgh Pirates team is the team in the division that the Reds should match up with the best. And they end up losing 7-0. 7-0. The Pirates scored 7 runs on 7 hits. The Reds strung together 5 hits throughout the game, didn't score any runs. And I get it. They were facing Paul Skeens, guy that is going to be in the Cy Young conversation and the Rookie of the Year conversation, I'm sure, by the end of all this. But Paul Skeens did Paul Skeens things. He pitched 6 innings. He allowed just 2 hits, walked 1 guy, and struck out 9. Paul Skeens has been amazing. Nick Lodolo, we already talked about this, was not amazing, allowing 5 runs on all of them earned in 4 2/3 innings. Junis was not better out of the bullpen, giving up 5 hits and allowing 2 runs in 2 1/3. Not great. The Reds pitching has struggled. Pittsburgh pitching didn't struggle last night. But there's people in this lineup that we're going to have to start paying attention to. I'm very interested in how Jonathan India performs the rest of the way. The Reds signed him to a 2-year deal, avoiding arbitration. That gives them the ability to trade him for a fixed amount in the offseason. Will they do it? I don't know. I don't know that I think that they should. But how he performs the rest of the way is going to determine his value. He's been up and down, but he's hitting .251 right now. That includes last night's statistics. Jonathan India has been streaky, but he's been pretty good by and large at the top of this lineup. If you go look at his last month, it's not been great. Slash line for the last month is 184, 288, 316 in a slump. But it looks like he might be starting to come out of it. In the last week, he's 269, 367, 423, a homer, 3 RBIs. He's walked 4 times, struck out a few times, stole a base. Jonathan India, in an upswing, helps this Reds team win some games the rest of the way, helps elevate his value, whether you're going to trade him or not. But the Reds should at least consider it in the offseason. And if they're going to consider it, they're going to need his value to be higher than it was going into the season. And I think that Jonathan India could play his way into that. You know, he was a guy at the beginning of the season without a position, without a true home, and injuries put him right back at second base and eliminated the great plans that David Bell had to get Jonathan India into games. It's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out the rest of the way for him. Jeff and I talked about Elly De la Cruz yesterday. He has the opportunity, the potential to possibly be a 30 homer, 70 steal guy. There's enough time left that he could get to those numbers. Currently, he sits at 22 home runs, 60 stolen bases. So the rest of the season, he has to hit 8 more dingers and steal 10 more bases. 10 more bases, I am not worried about. He is going to get those. Is he going to get the 8 more home runs? I'm not sure, but I think it's going to be close. He could be a 30-70 guy. Right now, his slash line is 263, 346, 838. Elly De la Cruz is amazing. Elly De la Cruz continues to do Elly types of things. He continues to be the face of this franchise. Baseball continues to try and make him a face of the sport. That's only going to continue to grow. They're going to do more and more of that. Elly De la Cruz needs a strong finish. We want to see him continue to build. I think he can get to the 30-70. I think that'll be a big deal for him. I want to see him accomplish that. I want to see him continue to improve. He's had his slumps, but the Reds seem to be in a position where the Reds need Elly to go in order for them to go. And I would like to see them to be able to separate out of that. Elly's going to have bad games, and the Reds can't live and die by what Elly De la Cruz does. Other guys are going to have to step up. Spencer Steer hit his 19th home run the other day. I think for what I want to see from Spencer Steer the rest of the way, I would like to just continue to see him in the lineup. I would like to see him playing all over the place. I think he could get to 25 home runs by the end of the season. I think that would be good. That would be something for him to build on next year. Finish strong, win a few more games, hit 25 home runs, and continue to build what he has been doing. TJ Friedl for the Reds, he's another guy that I want to kind of watch and see what he does the rest of the way. We counted on him for a lot this year, and we may be guilty of putting unreasonable expectations on TJ Friedl. The injuries didn't help, obviously, but we needed him to be a everyday center fielder playing all the time in order to get our Cincinnati Reds into contention, to be able to play well. The injuries derailed that, and it'll be very interesting to see how he finishes the season. Santiago Espinal is another one. Jeff and I talked about him just the other day. He has really turned it on of late. I know that a lot of people were down on him when he first came over in that trade from Toronto at the end of spring training. I was just talking to Paul Keels about Santiago Espinal and how I feel like it's really important, the piece that he is for this team, because the Reds have more team control of him. If you look at what he's done over the last 30 games, he's got a slash line of 340, 374, 521. He's hit 4 home runs in the last month, 12 RBIs. He's really, really, really playing well. Let's not forget he is a former All-Star for the Toronto Blue Jays. This is a very valuable piece. I think we really undervalued what Nick Krall did by bringing him in. And I think he's going to be a very valuable piece for this team next season in a bench role, in a spot starting role, in a fill-in for an injury role. You cannot overstate how valuable it is to have a Santiago Espinal on your team in those situations. One other guy that I think is finally figuring it out, finally turning it on, that's Noelvi Marte. Jeff and I are going to spend some time talking about him here in the coming days and weeks, because I think that Noelvi is finally starting to figure it out, finally starting to put it together after some struggles. I think the Reds rushed him to the big leagues coming off of that suspension where he didn't have a spring training. He needed more time to get himself ready before they called him up, but the needs of the team trumped that, and they pulled him up. If you look at his last month, it's not great. 212, 248, 346, 3 home runs. But as we look at the last week, 292, 292, 417. So he's not getting on base as much as we would want him to, but he's hitting for a better average. I think he's starting to put it together. Noelvi Marte, I really want him to just continue to get his reps in, to get some hits, to get playing time. Now that the playoffs aren't really a consideration, I want him out there as much as possible so that he can head into the offseason and make adjustments and be ready to be a contributor in 2025 from day one, which really hurt the Reds that he wasn't around from day one. So these are the guys we're looking at. These are the players that we have to watch, to monitor, to be excited about, to see what they're going to contribute to this team as it gets ready for the offseason and prepares to maybe reinvent itself a little bit more heading into the 2025 season. The big takeaway for me is that there's still plenty to pay attention to with this team in 2024 as we get ready for 2025. There are some new faces in town. There's new faces in new places. And coming up in just a minute, we're going to talk about who they are and what the Reds are going to be doing with them the rest of the way. We will get into all of that after a few words from our buddy Jeff.
When life gets busy, fitting in a workout can be stressful. With Tonal, you can get efficient workouts personalized just for you and are available with the amount of time that you have. Tonal is the world's smartest and most effective strength training system that helps you get stronger each and every day. It's powered by AI, and Tonal learns every rep that you do so it can deliver workouts personalized just for you. Tonal learns from your movement and provides suggested weight recommendations for every single move with detailed progress reports. They even create personalized program and workout suggestions or recommendations based on your individual goals. It's like having a personal trainer right at home with you, as Tonal will optimize every workout just for you. Right now, Tonal is offering our listeners $200 off the Tonal purchase with promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Tonal.com and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $200 off your purchase. Again, that's Tonal.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $200 off.
You can catch every pitch of the Reds' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Reds. Also, if you haven't done so yet, head over to CincinnatiRedsTalk.com for written content about your Cincinnati Reds. Jeff's writing over there. James Rapid's writing over there a lot. Occasionally, I will drop by with something. Lots of great written content about your Cincinnati Reds. All right, the Reds have made a couple moves in the last few days. There are a couple new faces on this team that you may or may not know. The most recent move is bringing in Dominic Smith, who was put on waivers by the Boston Red Sox. Now, this was a move, I think, purely in reaction to Jeimer Candelario breaking a bone in his foot. I don't know if you saw it, but he got hit on the foot. There is a broken bone. He is on the injured list. They needed somebody to fill that left-handed DH/first base and possibly maybe a couple starts in the outfield role. That's going to be Dominic Smith the rest of the way. Over in Boston, he didn't have a tremendous season, but he at times has had good seasons. His best season offensively was limited role play for the Mets way back in 2020. In 50 games, he hit .316 as a batting average. His career batting average is .247, OPS plus. He's a career OPS plus of 97, so 3% below league average. This is a just fine pickup, guys. This is needing to fill a hole that occurred because of an injury. Rather than bring somebody up from AAA that was going to be overmatched, you bring up a guy with a lot of major league experience. He's played 8 years in the bigs. It's going to be just fine. He's gonna fill a role. He's gonna get some at bats, play his way, hopefully, into getting himself a contract, whether that's with the Reds or anybody else heading into 2025. I have no problems with this move. I have no problems with Nick Kroll pulling the trigger on this. I'm going to be interested to see what Dominic does the rest of the way. The other move, which I think is a really good move, and I'm surprised at how it's going down. So we talked about this the other day, Jeff and I did. The Reds claimed from waivers Ahmed Rosario from the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, Rosario, he's been really tearing it up this year. In fact, for the 2024 season, he's hitting a whopping .286 with a .333 on base and a .357 slugging percentage. His OPS plus on the season is 112. 112. And I gave you the wrong stat line. That was his National League numbers. Let's go back. On the season, his slash line is .306, .331, .414 with an OPS plus of 112. He's a 300 hitter. Where I'm a little confused is he gets here and he sits the bench right away. There's no reason in my mind that this guy's not in the lineup every day the rest of the way. He's hitting the ball well. He's performed well in the American and the National Leagues. He's done time in Tampa, in Los Angeles, and now in Cincinnati this season. And again, he's 12% above league average. The Reds can't have that sitting on the bench. The rest of the way, I think that Rosario should be in the lineup as much as possible. He got his first action for the Reds last night, going 1 for 3. David Bell needs to run him out there. He needs to be in the lineup. He can play some shortstop. He can play some second base. He can play some outfield. He's not going to play any of them at Gold Glove level, but he can play all of those places. There's no reason to not have him in the lineup. And the way and what we've seen from guys like Will Benson of late, I don't want to see another at bat from Will Benson if Rosario is available. These two guys, they're all role players. They've been brought in because needs have been created based on injury, based on underperformance. Let them go and audition. Both of these guys are going to be playing for jobs next year. Get them in there, get them in the lineup, let them work for it. They're going to be hungry. Let them play. Let them help the Reds win some more games. Let them help fuel what's going on in Cincinnati. Both of them are veterans. Let them interact with these young guys, and maybe they'll teach them something along the way. I'm not ready to give up on this season, guys. I'm not ready to just tune out. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to continue to say I think the playoffs have slipped away. but there's a lot of fun stuff to watch. There's a lot of important things to still watch with this team. There's a lot of interesting storylines that we're going to be paying attention to the rest of the way, because these Cincinnati Reds aren't done yet. There's stuff that's going to happen over the next several weeks that really are going to matter. And we're going to be all over it for you here on Locked On Reds. That's going to wrap up this edition of Locked On Reds. Thanks for always making us your first listen every day, everydayers. Coming up, Jeff and I will be back together next week, and we will continue to have you covered about these Cincinnati Reds. Thank you for making Locked On Reds your first listen today. Now go check out the Locked On MLB podcast. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day. You can find the link to Locked On MLB in the description of today's show, so you don't need to go search for it. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Until next time, I'm going to continue to monitor these Reds and the rumors and the waiver wires, because that's what we're doing this week. And I'm going to gather up all the information I can and bring it back here to keep you Locked On Reds every single day.